Welcome to School Zone, the show all about your local school districts here in the White Mountains. I'm your host, John Larsen. Today we have Dr. Diana Abel, who is Sholo School District's early childhood faculty, and she's also director of the Cubbie Hole, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. Diana, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you taking time to come and see us and to share with us some of the things that you do. I'd like to start this off with a personal introduction, if you would please tell us about yourself. I'd like to really know a lot about your schooling and your continued education.
Well, I'll tell you my life history.
That'll work.
I moved to Arizona in 1966, my sophomore year in high school, and graduated from McClintock High School in Tempe. And actually, I moved across, the neighborhood I moved into had an extra bonus. The boy that was across the street ended up becoming my husband. So
nice.
He was my boyfriend through high school and college, and he literally was the boy next door. But after high school, we both went to Mesa Community College, and then we went on to ASU. And in 1971, we decided that it was time that we got married. We'd been dating for about 5 years. And, it was at the height of the Vietnam War. Young people didn't know exactly what the future was going to hold. He was in ROTC. So we thought we really needed to get married. And, back in 1971, as I like to tell my students, it wasn't uncommon for girls to drop out of college to trade their pursuit of their BS for their MRS. Well, I did to help hubby get through school. And as he's finishing school, Nixon says anyone born in 1950 or earlier, we don't want you anymore. So you're free to pursue your life. So he became a Phoenix police officer, and after he was on the force for about 3 years, we started our family. And after our third child in 3.5 years, I decided that I wanted to work in the early childhood field. So I started by opening a child care center in my own home, because my neighbors were all gone to work and my children had no one to play with. And I thought, well, I'll just bring the mountain here. And but I would only take in school teachers' children, because I'd been an education major and I knew that we'd probably have the same discipline, philosophy, the same academic quest for our kids. And so for about 5 years, that's what I did, until my youngest child went to kindergarten. And during that period of time, there was a program that got expanded through school lunch called the Child and Adult Care Food Program. And it reached out to child care centers and child care homes. And I met someone that literally changed my life, and he had been granted one of these programs from Department of Education, and he asked me to become his training person. So I started training other family child care providers. And there was a movement nationally to raise the visibility and the professionalism of people who did child care in their home, because most people don't realize this, but the vast majority of our children before the age of kindergarten are cared for people in their home, not so much in a child care center or another institutionalized setting. So he asked me to go to Washington, D.C. through the Children's Foundation to represent the Southwest, to advocate for early childhood training and increased federal visibility and increased federal dollars. I'm 30 years old, John. When you're 30, you think you could do anything. And so I said, oh, sure, sign me up. And the other thing I thought was, I've never been east of the Mississippi. So, wow, this is going to be just professionally and personally really expand my horizons. So I went back, met 15 other women, and we became very close. And over the next 2 years, by 1981, we had formed a national organization called the National Association for Family Child Care, which is still very much alive and doing well these days. So I'm really proud that in very early days of my career that I stepped up and said, hey, we need some help here in Arizona, because in the 70s and 80s, child care in Arizona was pretty dismal. And it was part of the other reason, too, that I did not want to take my children to out-of-home care, is because couldn't find anybody to match my standards. So I thought, My dad had always been a businessman. I thought I could just build a better mousetrap. So I get back from Washington. We set up this national program. And then my mentor in the child care food program said, the state has additional money to set up grants for other people who might want to do this. I really would like to introduce you to the people that could help make that possible. So I went down to Department of Ed and went through their process. And then I was given a grant to start an organization that would take training out to the to whatever community in Arizona I so chose. And so for the next 17 years, that's what I did. I was executive director of the Center for Family Child Care Resources, which is also still alive and well down in the valley. And our outreach is primarily the Maricopa area, Prescott area, the Globe area, and those surrounding communities. And we started with no clients and ended up, when I left that position, we ended up with about 850 clients that we were servicing throughout the state of Arizona. So we brought to them nutrition training, child development training, sponsored a yearly conference for them, really helped them to raise their own self-image of being a professional, because you never call a family child care provider a babysitter. Because a babysitter, I always thought, was someone that I just hoped would take the kids out if the house caught on fire. I expected them to eat whatever they found in the refrigerator, and probably would sneak their boyfriend into my house when the kids went to bed. That's a babysitter.
Right.
But a child care provider is really a parenting partner. And so I worked very hard to make that a visible sort of approach to the field during my years. During that time, I realized that I had no alphabet after my name, and the world had changed. And so I went back to school as a returning adult student, which is never easy, but I also wanted to be a role model for my kids, especially my two daughters. So as they're in high school, I'm back getting my bachelor's degree. And I decided to get it in human resource management, because that's what I was really doing. I was managing Cubans. And as soon as I finished my bachelor's, a very dear friend of mine who was the early childhood faculty at Mesa Community College called me and said, hey, now that you have your bachelor's degree, I can hire you as a part-time faculty. Will you come and teach our business administration courses for childcare? And I said, sure, sounded like fun. I was hooked, because I always wanted to be a teacher. I just took a little detour to have a family and to open up a nonprofit agency. So I knew that in order to teach in the community colleges, I had to have a master's. So I enrolled in my master's program and got it done in 2 years, and came out with a master's in human development with a focus in early childhood leadership.
Can I ask you, where'd you
Sure.
get your bachelor's?
My bachelor's is from Ottawa University.
Ottawa, okay.
Yes,
And then
they're
your master's?
My master's is from a small private Quaker college in California called Pacific Oaks.
Yeah, great.
Loved going to school there. Could do it by distance, and then I would have to go once a quarter and stay for a week.
Oh, okay,
And
yeah.
so that, and like I said, my kids were, by that time I had some kids in college, so I didn't, they certainly could take care of themselves. They actually took care of their dad, I think, is how it ended up being. But I am not kidding you, John. 2 weeks after I finished my master's, a position came open at Glendale Community College. And I had gotten some really good career advice several years earlier, and they said, teach at all the community colleges you can. So I've been teaching part-time at Glendale, Phoenix College, up here at Northland Pioneer, down at Coolidge, down at Central Arizona College, Mesa Community, Scottsdale. Whoever called me, I would go teach a class for them. So when the position came open at Glendale, they knew me, and they knew my work. And I'm so very fortunate that I got hired as a full-time faculty at Glendale Community College. And no more, it seemed like no more I had moved into that office. My husband, who had just retired from the Phoenix Police Department after 25 years, said, so now when are we going to get our doctorate? And I said, we? And he goes, yeah, I'll, if you have to go out of state, I'll go with you. And he said, you need to invest in yourself. You need to make sure that you can have that retirement that's really going to be helpful to you. And he was a very smart man, because in hindsight, neither of us knew that he was going to be diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's in his 50s. And that I was literally going to have to be in charge of everything. So he was very wise. And he did go with me, John. I got my degree in California at the University of Sarasota, which became Argosy University. And he would go with me because I'd have to do the residency, week again. He'd go with me. He'd take me to school. He'd come bring me my lunch. Sometimes he'd even bring lunch for my schoolmates. And in the evening, he'd always make sure he had dinner ready, because we'd always rent little, efficiency apartments. And he basically kept me sane while I was getting a doctorate, because every class you have to produce 50 to 60 pages for a final paper. And that's not easy while you're trying to work full time.
Sure.
But after that, I was at Glendale for 8-9 years, and I frankly got tired of driving an hour and a half each direction from Tempe to Glendale, spending about 15 hours of my life every week in the car. And an opening came at Mesa Community, and I only lived 10 minutes from there. So I transferred to Mesa. And I was very fortunate that while I was at Glendale, I also was given the opportunity to be the curriculum design facilitator.
Great.
So half of my load was teaching, the other half was helping all the other faculty design their curriculum.
Yeah, great.
Because that's what my doctorate was in, was curriculum design.
Great.
So I really found that I had a real love for that. And during my days at Glendale, I was the primary person instrumental for coming up with a new prefix in the community college system that the universities agreed to take any course in transfer. Because prior to this, we would have infighting between the community colleges and the universities. And I understood the rationale that we could hire part-time people with a bachelor's, but in their system, you had to have a master's. So I created a new prefix that said that if you taught under this prefix, you had to have a master's. So the university could readily be able to see and accept this in articulation. And that worked and is still working very well for early childhood students who want to come out of the Maricopa system and go into NAU or ASU or sometimes the U of A. They have their entrance is a little tougher to get that through, but they can do it. But so when I was at Mesa, I got to still continue my curriculum design and to teach part-time. And then because I had been on the curriculum design team and they would always meet once a month, I got to know other people in the district. And I got to know the Vice President, Rio Salato, of academics very, very well. And Rio Salato did not have an early childhood program in 2005. And they called me and said, please apply for this. We really would like to bring you over and have you develop our new online early childhood program. So I applied and they hired me and spent 10, 11 years there before I retired. We went from no students at all. And when I retired in January of 2016, yes, 2016, I have something, I left them with 70 adjunct instructors, 16 staff members, and 4,000 students. Wow. So the 10, 11 years that I was there was very exciting, very productive. And I retired. My husband had just passed away. And anyone who has any knowledge of Alzheimer's knows that the toll that it takes on a family is really, really tough. Plus, I had had breast cancer a couple of years earlier. And I was tired. I was tired. And I decided that I just really didn't want to take FMLA. I really wanted to see what the next part of my life was going to look like. What was the next horizon? So I retired and I started taking paralegal courses.
Really?
Because I wanted something to challenge myself mentally. And I really wanted to know more about the law because my husband had spent so many years being a law enforcement agent. Loved the classes, and boy, were they tough. But the younger students were really very receptive, and I did very well, but it wasn't very exciting. It was, for me, kind of boring. But interesting, but I couldn't see myself becoming a paralegal. I just didn't see that. But I knew that I couldn't just sit around quilting. All my grandkids are in school, and and I thought, I've got to do something that's purposeful in my life. So while I'm trying to figure this out, my daughter, who teaches early childhood at McClintock High School, my alma mater, unfortunately, in her very early 40s, was diagnosed with breast cancer and needed a long-term sub. So Mom stepped in to sub for her so she would not worry about her students and stay home and take care of herself. So I did that last year, and I'd never taught high school before. And she's like, Mom, they're not college students. And I said, hey, sorry, but a lot of my college students, their freshman year had just barely graduated from high school, so I don't think there's been a whole lot of maturation going on. I think I'll be fine. I loved it, John. I loved it. I just thought the kids were great. And my friends who had retired from the community college system thought I'd lost my ever-loving mind, I have to tell you. When my daughter was better and came back at the spring semester last year, the high school said, hey, we've got a business teacher who needs to go out on long term, and you have a business degree. Will you teach business and computer applications? I said, sure, why not? I'm up for anything. And so I did. And I told my daughter, I said, I found purpose. I said, I would really like to teach high school. And she's like, okay, Mom, if you're sure. And she said, and if you're really sure, I just got a notice from Department of Ed that Sholo was having difficulty finding an early childhood person who's qualified to come up and live on the mountain. Now, John, I have to tell you something. It was always my husband's dream that when we both retired, because he retired long before me, but when we both retired, we would live at Sholo.
Wow.
And I thought, I don't believe in coincidences. I don't believe in just, happenstance. Thought, I think this is something that I need to pursue. So I drove up, met with the administration, really liked the people at the table. Farrell Adams, super guy. Ben Martian, super guy. They hired me on the spot. I've never been offered a job on the spot before. And I was thrilled. And so I got myself a little place up here because I really don't want to drive very far in the winter, and I don't want to try and dodge elk and deer and live out in the family home that we have out in Overgard. I've turned that over to my son. But I have to tell you that I don't ever have a sense of, oh my gosh, I have to go to work today. It's like, wow, what am I going to do today with these kids? So what drove me, what pulled me out of retirement was the opportunity to be with young people. Kids up here are great kids. They don't have the edge that the kids in the valley seem to have. I think because life is not as stressful up here. Sholo's not a very big high school, so that's great. And in the valley, they have those super big high schools of 4,000 kids. And I'm not a real proponent of that. I think the smaller the high school, the better off the kids are. You can certainly get to know them and they can get to know you. But what brought me out of retirement was the desire to live the next chapter of my life with purpose. Because I have to tell you, quilting and doing some volunteer work with people my age didn't give me a lot of sense of purpose, because they mostly wanted to talk about their aches and pains and how much they didn't get along with their adult children and how lonely they were. And I thought, I can't live like this. I have to be around vibrant people and people who are really interested in early childhood. And I found so much support at the Sholo High School. My daughter, who is down at McClintock, is very envious, actually, of all the support that I get. And working with Superintendent Housley, I don't think she's ever met her superintendent.
Yeah.
And
wow.
so it's such a different culture,
Sure.
and one that I really embrace because it feels very caring, and it feels very tight-knit, feels very family-oriented, which is really great.
Good. So I love hearing your story, because my hope is that not only the kids in the high school who are embarking on their adulthood, but the parents and the adults who may have the opportunity to see this will see that anything's possible.
Oh, absolutely.
You can go back
Absolutely.
at 30, 40. You can go back at...
I finished my doctorate at 52.
Yeah, I was 48 or
Right.
so when I finished my bachelor.
Right.
Went back and got my bachelor. I had my associates at a young age. But anyway, I just really love your story, and I love the fact that you grabbed the bull by the horn, so to speak, along with all of the other challenges that happen in life.
I just like to say I know how to bloom where I'm planted. Taking a chance on myself has never been frightening for me. And I don't say that from a sense of self-inflated ego. I say that because I married well. I married someone who was very supportive of me, certainly obtained degrees higher than he had. And his favorite thing was to say to me as I go out the door every day was, "Go, Diana, go." You can't do those kind of things in life and feel
Yeah.
confident without that family support.
Right. And what a great lesson.
Exactly.
What a great lesson
And it
for
was a great role
all of
model
us.
for our children.
Yeah.
But what I would
Great.
say to the parents that may be viewing this today is, this is what I used to say to older people who would come to me for college advisement.
Mm-hmm.
They say, oh, I think I'm just too old to go back to school. I say, are you dead yet?
Yeah, right.
So if you're not dead yet, you're not too old to go back to school.
Right. And 2 years, 4 years is going to pass regardless of
quickly.
what you do.
Very quickly.
Right? Whether you sit home and do nothing or whether
Right.
you're proactive and active.
And this would be this would be the challenge I would throw out to parents. If you haven't embarked on or haven't finished your higher education, what do you want to say to your kids? I always felt and know that it's not what you say, but it's what you do.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
so
Part of
that's
the reason why I went back.
it was the reason that I went back was I had daughters in high school, and I didn't want them to say, "Oh, well, Mom, it's okay, Mom."
Not important.
No, and my daughters would tell you today if they were sitting here. We saw our mom go back to school when we were in high school. She was running a business, she was raising kids, and was very active with the kids. And she went to school, and we decided we didn't want to have to do that. We'll just get
Get it
college
done now, right?
and get it
Absolutely.
done before we
Absolutely.
have other life responsibilities.
Right, right.
Right.
So tell me, I want to know about the early childhood program. Just give us a quick idea of what that is, and then I don't want to miss out on the Cubbie Hole.
Okay, great.
Okay.
The early childhood program in Sholo is 3 levels: level 1, 2, and 3. The first level is the study of child development. Students can be sophomores, juniors, or seniors to enroll in that particular course. And we basically go over the fundamentals of child development, from theory to infant care to toddlers to preschool, health and safety, food and nutrition, some real basics, and how to care for a young child. Then the second and third year is where the Cubbie Hole comes into play. Those students are our advanced students, and they get enrolled in dual enrollment credit at Northland Pioneer College. And if they stay the course in levels 2 and 3, they will come out with a certificate of completion for Northland Pioneer College in early childhood. They will spend half their time with me in the classroom working on their modules. The other half of their time is they go to the Cubbie Hole and work with my lead teacher. And we have a group of 10 little kids from the community, ages 3, 4, and 5, who come to us Monday through Thursday from 8 o'clock until 11:15 during the time when I have advanced students. And my advanced students have a rotating schedule. They know which day they go in and work with the young kids. So they get an opportunity to take that theory that they learned in the first year and what they're learning in advanced studies through Northland Pioneer and put it into practice in the Cubbie Hole. And just to tout a little bit about the Cubbie Hole, and then I'll tell you a little bit about our Ed Rising student organization that we have this year in early childhood. But the Cubbie Hole we can enroll up to 10 kids from the community.
Okay.
Our fees are very, 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 very reasonable. I'm hesitant to say right now how much they are because we haven't set the price for next year yet. But
Do you have a hard time filling the 10
no,
slots?
we
Okay.
always have
More than.
we always have people on a waiting
Okay.
list. We will start letting out applications around the 15th of April, and
So right around the corner.
right around the
Mm-hmm.
corner, and that will continue to the very last day of school, which I think is the 24th of May, and we will let people know very quickly if they have a slot. 10 slots, it does fill up very quickly.
I'm sure it does.
And I believe the last time we asked, because we always ask parents, is it your intention that your child will go to kindergarten next year? I believe 8 of those kids will go to kindergarten. So we will probably only have 8 slots next year.
Okay.
So if parents are interested, all they need to do is either call the Sholo High School, stop by the front office, or they can send me an email, and I'm happy to send them a application.
Okay.
So it's very simple, and the little kids in the Cubbie Hole bring so much joy to our program. My advanced students really truly enjoy working with them. My level 1 students are getting ready to take home the computerized babies.
Oh, wow.
Oh wow! I set them up. I don't give them the easy. I can set them easy, medium, or hard. They start off with medium because, you know, you don't get that choice in real life.
Right,
you know.
right.
So
Is there ever a medium?
no. And I set them to go off in the middle of the night, so the kids know that they have to hold them a certain way, and a certain kind of cry. They have an electronic bottle they have to feed them. You can even tell if you change the diapers when you need to, because there's electronics in the diaper. They truly are very amazing babies. I think the tagline is the smartest babies you've ever seen. But they are set up through a computer. I can monitor them. And I can tell whether they've been left in their car seat too long, whether they were left to cry too long, whether the bracelet that the student wears is more than 20 feet from the baby at all times. So in other words, you can't leave it with your boyfriend. You've got to take care of it yourself. That's
so neglect is probably the wrong word, but you would be able to tell if they're neglecting the babies, right?
Neglect is a good word, John. Okay. Yes, that's exactly what I would tell them. You've neglected your baby. So your grade is reflective of that, and this is a major part of their fourth quarter grade. So they need to take it very seriously. And my girls are really chomping at the bit to get the babies.
Are they?
They are.
Bless
It
their hearts.
amazes me, but it's just kind of funny. But they'll be going out this Friday. So if anybody in town sees these babies, they're not real. They look real, but they're not real.
So I would love to visit with you another time. I appreciate so much
Just
you
give
coming.
me a holler.
I appreciate
No problem.
your example and the opportunity for our kids to learn this. I wish I would have had the opportunity to learn some of these things. I think I would have been a better father.
I've got
sure.
a couple of freshman boys, because we have this career rotation where they come into our class
right.
every 4 weeks, and I've got a couple of boys that have said, Dr. Abel, we're in your class next year.
Good.
And they
That's
said,
great.
Because one of these days we're going to be a father, and we
Yeah.
want to know how to do it.
Absolutely.
And these are really macho
So
kind
great.
of boys. So
great.
they ride rodeo, and I told
great.
the other boys, anybody else want to man up like these? And I
Yeah.
tell them the names. They're like, they're going to take child development. That's what they tell me.
That's so great. Thank you for
You're
your
welcome.
influence
Thank you,
so
John.
much.
I appreciate
Thanks
it.
for joining us here on School Zone, and we'll see you again soon.